Now, I've been working on making a PTO from scratch, which is a permeability tuned oscillator. Here's how far I got. This is the unit. I'm waiting on the wire. Terminals on the back. Wait, yeah, it's in the frame. Terminals on the back. When you turn this in, the piston's inside. The coil will be wound on here. I just want to talk to you about drift. And I spent days reading about PTOs and VFOs and people building this, people saying that. A Collins radio, PTO, when you first turn the radio on, I just turned this one on and set it at 6 megacycles. So this is set at 6. It's slowly, I believe, drifting down. Let's see, yeah, it's drifting down. It'll drift down for so many minutes, and then it'll start coming back up, and it gets in a range of, say, 50 hertz. And this is an open T50-6 toroid coil with approximately 20 turns. But I'm telling you, it drifts 300 hertz, then it settles down, and it travels in an area of 50 hertz. Now, these drift people, they'll make comments like, oh, I have to follow this guy up and down the band. That's bullshit. The guy's transmitter is drifting 100 hertz. Up and down the band, let's try again. And you see these things, and they put these thoughts in your head, and then you start saying, well, how accurate are these oscillators? How much do they really drift? Well, back to the Collins. The Collins, when you first turn it on, that's cold start. That's overnight. The radio sat there, you turn it on. From cold start to where it settles down, it's going to drift 500 hertz. And that's because even the ones that have the heater in them, when you cold start it, it takes a while for that heater to come up. So that thing's going to drift 500 hertz. And then it's going to get into a zone of 20 hertz, if you're lucky, and it's in good shape. So you go out there and you're reading about different oscillators, Franklin oscillators, clap oscillators, coal pits. And I like a Franklin Berry, a Franklin oscillator because it lets me do a wider range of frequencies. And you can run it with just after you get your ferrite or your toroid coil on it, you can go from 3 megacycles to 8. So I can do CHU Canada all the way up to some shortwave stations like 7490. There's a station up at 7490. So one oscillator in one of my receivers that I built from scratch will let me do a range. You'll get WWV, it'll get CHU Canada, it'll get the hams on AM at night. It gets a wide variety of things within those two ranges. So I'm up there looking back and forth. You know, these guys put this stuff in your head. You know, I have to follow the guy up and down the band when I talk to him. Yeah, he's drifting 100 hertz. Yeah, that's up and down the band. What nonsense. But that's how a lot of hams talk. They talk nonsense. They don't build anything. Go on YouTube and put in like a Collins 51J dash whatever, and you'll see 50 videos of people just stroking the outside of the radio. Now, I took you inside the radio. I explained to you what the parts are. I showed you the moving. I showed you the cams. These guys don't do any of that because they don't understand any of that. And I told you it's a steep curve. You got to get in it. You got to want to get in it. You got to do a lot of reading, and you got to stay with it. And now I got mine repaired. I just had a capacitor fail the other day. After the thing was on 2.5 to 3 hours, the audio would get distorted. I knew it was either going to be a tube or a capacitor. And I went right in that stage, and I saw a bumblebee and had a split down the side. I disconnected it, used my cap checker that I built, and it told me it's leaky. Changed it, that fixed the problem. But I had to wait another 2.5 hours to see if the distortion came back. But other people, they throw this stuff around. Now, I did find some treasure trove of not Collins, Franklin VFOs. Now, there was a Franklin with FETs, a Franklin oscillator with FETs, and the guy mentions J10, I believe it is, FET is better than the MFP 102s that I'm using. I'm dyslexic, so I might have my numbers a little jumbled. But in other words, he claims that the junctions in the certain FETs cause drift. So I'll accept that. But how much better does it make it using? He didn't mention any of that. See, I found over 30 PFOs articles, and no one mentions any numbers. They mention it doesn't drift, but how much? They don't mention that. And a lot of the articles are just copies. A guy did an article in like 1940, and they're just rehashes of that article. So after you're in there a while, you realize, oh, that's the 1940 article redone again with different tubes. So the guy does it. Oh, originally it's done with octals. Then somebody uses 9 pins or what's the other, 7-pin or 9-pin tubes, and they use all the buzzwords, drift, and then some of them they use a clap oscillator or Colpitts. They have some formulas in there, and no mention of drift. They mentioned the drift. That's the whole idea of the article, but they never mention how much. So if you're building these different circuits, you can't say before you even start how much drift are you looking for? 10 hertz after it warms up? Is that what you're looking for? And I know a lot of you people are screaming at the video right now. Why bother? Just get one of them DDS modules from eBay. Well, I have one of those, and it has to have a keypad and an encoder wheel, and it produces a lot of noise. Now, I also want to tell you, this eBay frequency counter, it produces noise also on certain frequencies. So you're like, what? Well, and some of it comes from the display scanning, and there's no way in it to turn the display off. So it'd be nice after you get it on frequency, you could hit a program print and shut the display off so that noise goes away. But these are the things when you actually work on something. And I want to tell you, an oscillator from cold start is 24 hours. The oscillator sits there, solid state oscillator. When you turn it on, it's going to drift a lot more than if you turn it off for an hour and turn it back on. So you have your favorite oscillator, and you decide to put a huff and puff circuit on it. You put the huff and puff circuit on it, and it's dead on. It doesn't drift at all. You're happy. You shut it off, you go to bed that night, the next morning you turn the circuit on, and the huff and puff won't lock. That's because your oscillator is cold, and it takes a while to warm up. I'll get to the next thing. And it warms up, and then your huff and puff can keep it locked. See, when you were working with it and picking the values to keep it locked, your oscillator had been warmed up. Also, I think it has to do with the static charges in the FET. Even though you shut it off, they sort of stay there. So when you turn it back on within a certain amount of minutes or hours, some of that charge is still there, so you're going to get a certain frequency. Now, when you leave it 24 hours, that charge is going to dissipate slowly, and you're going to be in a different ball game. I just want to throw that stuff out there because this is the stuff you learn as you work with different things. And you don't write it down. You sort of forget it. The next person can't figure it out. They throw their hands up, and I close the comment section because I get people, will you make me one? Gee, it would be nice if you drew up a schematic. Yeah, it'd be real nice, but I don't get paid for that time, and I want to be paid for that time because I spent my retirement money in research and development in CNC machines, it was horrible. The experience was horrible. I'm selling plans, I'm trying to make them cheaper and better machines. And meanwhile, there's just people copying stuff, stealing stuff. So my retirement money went to R&D for somebody else. And in the long run, the interest of CNC machines died. It was just like computers. There was a peak, and everybody wanted a computer. Now only certain people buy computers. Younger people, older people, they bought them, they bought one. They didn't use it. They never turned it on. They would talk about it. I'm going to get to it. They're dead. It's in the garbage. It comes and goes. It peaks. And the CNC peaked. And the 3D printers, it still seems to be going pretty good, but you got so many people in it. And I could have just easily turned my machines into 3D printers, but I didn't want to get involved with all that stuff. You got the bed that's heated. It's a small size. It's real expensive. Then later on, the bigger bed that's heated is less money. Then you got people recycling the plastic to make their own filaments. It just went in so many directions. Where's the money? And then you have that maker slide stuff. And that came out. And people wanted it in longer and longer lengths. You know, they want to build an 8-foot long machine, and maker slide flexes a lot, about an 1/8 inch under its own weight over that distance. See, people in their mind when they design stuff, they don't really understand the materials they're working with. But right now I'm into the let's try a PTO or a magnetic inductor to change the frequency. See, I have the test bed. We have the test bed. We disconnect 2 wires and we run it up to this thing I'm building once I get the wire. And then I know how much this drifts at 6 megacycles. And that's the standard that I'm using. Now, with the Collins, no matter what band you're on, their PTO is always running the same frequency range. Go look it up. It's really cool. So in other words, they use a low frequency PTO, and no matter what frequency you're switching to, what band you're on, that PTO still has the same range. When you change the frequency dial, the block of wood moves and gives you a different scale. But everything gets downscaled or pre-scaled into the same range. And that's why the amount of drift of 500 hertz from being cold to heating up, that's pretty good. Because you go up in the upper frequencies, it's near impossible to get an oscillator to be within 500 hertz when you're way up in frequency. So what they did was they pre-scaled everything down in frequency and then worked with it. And those DDS units that are on eBay, they're noise, they make hash. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be able to do this. Okay, we want WWV. So you turn it to WWV. There you go, close enough. WWV. We want the hams. I don't know if this will go down low enough for the hams. 3.885. There's the hams. All right. My favorite station up at 740. 7490. All right, this won't go up there right now because it's not pre-scaled. Anyway, all right, what I'm doing with it at the moment. But in other words, I want to just tune to this station. The Better Digital, they have a tuning knob, and as you turn it, it goes. And some radios have a fast and a slow, and it's never on fast when you want it on fast, and it's on slow when you want it on fast. It annoyed me, so I've been designing my favorite radio just to stay busy. And I just wanted to give you as much information that I have so far about drift. And you'll read these articles and they mention, yeah, this oscillator has less drift. Compared to what? How much? Where's some numbers? And you'll find article after article. And it's very frustrating for me. And then every once in a while, like the one guy said, the one FET. You got to use this one type of FET or it'll drift more. Well, I'll try it. I have those FETs. And we'll try it. We'll take my Franklin oscillator and we'll take it out of here. And after we do our PTO, and then I'll change the FETs and see how much this improves. You know, he had no numbers either. He didn't say, yeah, if you use better FETs, the thing will drift 100 hertz less. No, it'll drift less because of the junction. But how much? Worthless articles. I went through so many worthless articles. And I know it sounds like I'm being negative, but why write an article if you're not going to show anything? And the same thing is, why are there 50 videos of this Collins radio that the person's only turning the knobs from the front, not even taking the cover off and showing you what it looks like inside, not showing you the gear train, it just burns me. And they got more views than I have. Lately, my channel's been doing better because people will say, this guy really figures this stuff out. Yeah, I stay with it. It's painful. And sometimes, like the last video you saw, I just had to go for a walk. I was getting antsy. And I go for a walk, and I come back all calm down, and then I do a video. And I try not to rant, because there's so much wrong with everything. And when I work on building an oscillator with less drift. And a lot of the big mouths wouldn't have made it this far. Put it in a metal can, put a heater in it. That's what you do to it after you get it close to what you want. Then you put it in the can, and it'll drift less. Well, it still has the cold drift. When you first turn it on, that heater in the can has to come up. That's the thing that might freak people out. They're like, turn this thing on, and their radio is all over the place. And then they get frustrated and shut it off. Well, if you wait 20 minutes, now it's not going to drift. And the drifting will show up when you're doing CW and sideband. And then after a while, it doesn't drift. You touch it up a little bit. Oh, you have to follow the guy up and down the band. Oh, stop already. I think that's it. All right, that's it.